Crash Landing is not an easy mod pack in the slightest. You have a limited water supply, upgraded mobs that'll make nighttime a terrible place to be, and it's also in hardcore as well, so once you die, you lose all your progress. This mod pack usually takes a solid 100 hours to complete, but we don't have 100 hours, we have around 33. This is not to say it's impossible, but I wanted to see how much I can get done within 100 days. My goal was to create buildings and see if I could make something out of this eternal oasis.
Before we actually get started, I don't know if this is like intended or not, but I was doing a practice run of this and I saw, as you can see, there are some drops that you can get. I know you're not supposed to run, especially early, but Crash Landing the first day, as you see here, we have a bunch of rotten flesh, we have a bunch of whatever. Crash Landing is probably one of the most difficult mod packs ever made, especially for the first day. The first day is the absolute hardest. I'm low-key gonna run here. I don't have a lot of food early on too, which is a little scary, but I did some running around. We need to get as many things as possible. We need to get bones, and I think I have to get the fluid transposers. That's something, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I did die a couple times trying to like get this in my practice runs or whatever, which is actually insane because yeah, it just shows you how difficult this mod pack is. But we're gonna get the 2 fluid transposers. We're gonna complete the basic survival, and we're gonna get the camel pack. And the camel pack just basically allows us to get water. So we'll do 2 of these, and we'll put these back. Essentially what makes Crash Landing so difficult, especially the first day, is the sun. You only technically have half a day to get everything done, to get as much dust as possible, to basically set up a little moat. So the moat allows you to do is like all the mobs, like the skeletons and the creepers, they'll fall into the pits. Their AI is really bad. You only have to worry about the spiders, but we're gonna do something for the spiders if I have enough time. I also wanna see what we can do on top of here. And then also what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put 2 high. I think maybe I should do 3 high or something. I think I will do 3 high, even though it is gonna be a little annoying to get more dust. But let me see how much time I have. Okay, I have a little bit more time throughout the day, which is good. But essentially, the first day is always going to be the hardest. I cannot stress that enough. The first day is you have to get the most done. Like you have to get a lot of dust, at least a stack, I would say. Getting a stack is decent. And let's see, how much time do I have left? I have a little bit of time. So let's get all this. I got a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna go back now. Essentially, I spent a lot of time just getting resources, which is very good. So then we're gonna do this so we can see outside. Bop, 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 bop. Yeah, okay, I spent a lot of time just doing stuff, but you really had to, not a lot of time explaining.
So as day 1 comes to a close, you'll face one of the more game-changing decisions in Crash Landing, which is choosing your difficulty. Now, you can choose the easy route, which you get a sink shell, oak saplings, a ton of bone meal, and technically infinite lives. However, the other difficulty is you gain access to spruce trees, you gain access to a couple pieces of bone meal, you don't get the same sink shell that you would, and you only have 3 lives. Now, do I like this? Not really. Here's kind of my issue with how they designed the system. In the early game, your choice barely affects you at all. Yes, you don't have the sink shell, but you technically shouldn't be dying that much. The game doesn't really incentivize you after a certain amount of days to take those massive risks, but late game, or especially when you get a jetpack, you are going to venture out into cities, and sometimes they're thousands of blocks away, they're very dangerous, and it's very punishing. Like, even if you die on easy mode, you're still gonna have to go all the way back, you're still gonna have to glide or do whatever all the way over to there. Especially if you have 3 lives, you can become really cognizant of it. Like, oh, if I only have 1 life left, I have to be really careful about how I spend this 1 life. I like how the sync mod was added into the game and adds a little safety net, but I don't necessarily like the 3 live thing. Day 2, the first thing I knew I needed to do was find some mob loot, and I would have to deal with the spiders going out of the shuttle, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to come across.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Why is there so many? Dude, there's like a whole army. Yeah. I'm a really bad shot too. Whoa, 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 he hurts. Oh my God.
That was me getting jumped by a lot of spiders. The tough spiders suck because they have a lot of health and do a lot of damage, and I use the projectile to keep a safe distance between me and the spider to take them out. But getting outside early was absolutely crucial because I managed to plant my first tree, and my goal was simple: plant enough trees to craft essential tools that I desperately needed. First priority was getting a shovel. I rushed to get one immediately and started gathering dust over a stack of it. Now you might be asking why. It's because I needed to build a slab furnace as fast as possible. You only need 24 of the little ex nihilo stones, and each piece of dust gives you a very small chance of breaking those stones. The faster you can get a furnace up and running, the easier water production becomes, and you can get a slow but reliable solution to the water problem. Next up was the axe. This is essential because wood is something we're going to use a lot early game. We're going to use it for torches, even though torches are not very good because they add stuff to the heat. It's really good for fuel. It's making armor, as you'll see, and we're going to be burning through a lot of it, so we're going to need a lot. But the real game changer is the pickaxe because this tool is crucial. It unlocks our ability to build underground bases around the ship. Right now, we're completely at the mercy of the day-night cycle, but once we go underground, we can actually work and plant trees, maybe even make a farm without having to worry about mobs 24/7. That is a massive advantage for our survival. And as an added bonus, when you mine down to y equals 48, something interesting happens with the water. Instead of the water being salty water, which you can't drink at all, and every time you try to use a bottle and drink it, it'll make you more thirsty, it'll actually make dirty water. You have to obtain dirty water anyway by combining a dirt with an empty bottle, but this step completely removes the need to craft the dirt, and it will help us advance quicker in this mod pack. Day 3's main objective was how I could make water. One of the things that you have to understand is when you're playing Crashlanding, you have a sort of time limit before you have to find a good way on replacing the water that you're using. So one of the first things I decided to do was make shears. We ended up getting iron dust from sieving, so I just used that. And the way that the barrels work is you use it by filling them up with compost. In this case, we're using leaves, and we right-click them until they're done composting, in which they make dirt.
We're just gonna make so much dirt. What is this, only day 3? We're balling in dirt right now?
And when you make dirt, you can combine it with an empty water bottle to make dirty water, and then you could smelt that to make water. There is an alternative method to making water by using fluid transposers. If you put leaves inside, you can extract the water from them by using power. However, that's kind of an issue because we don't have a way to get power early on, but it was for a quest. It gave us 2 extra water bottles, so I was like, why not? Let's just do it anyway. There was also a quest called Tools of the Trade, which you had to make wooden armor, and I was barely able to make it. Armor also kind of sucks in this mod pack because the wooden armor adds heat to your temperature, so even though I made this armor, I technically don't really want to wear it. It'll make everything around me hotter. Because I don't have a good water supply, it's going to make retaining water very difficult. But in return, we also got this red heart canister, which adds to my health bar. So instead of having 10 hearts, we now have 11. There also was a separate quest that we instantly completed that required a slab furnace. And in one of the rewards, it was an autonomous activator. So these are especially good early game because it allows you to automate sieving very early on without using any power. So I used leaves to create this somewhat automatic sieving farm so stuff wouldn't fly out everywhere, but it required me to constantly put in dust. But for at least the early game, this is as good as we're gonna get. One of the things that suck about Crashlanding is the mobs, specifically the spiders. They do not despawn near the ship in the daytime. This is where I combine this with all my stock water, and all the food supply I've been getting for quests have been rather low. Therefore, I could not for the life of me risk going outside and fighting the mobs and mining when I literally have no hunger. Luckily, I had made a clay water bucket, and I was going to create an underground farm in the meantime. But this is where one of the biggest mistakes happened early in my run. When I went to create a dirty water source underneath my ship, my inventory was full, so in order to make room for the dirty water, which takes up 1 spot in my inventory, I threw out the rice seed that I had gotten from a quest. This was a major mistake because when I climbed up the ladder, I didn't have it and it despawned.
I got rice seeds from somewhere. Where are my seeds? Ooh, okay. Where are my seeds? I'm pretty sure I submitted that quest book, right? Did my rice seeds disappear? Like, where the hell did they go? They seem to just disappear. Can I get rice from... I can get it from sieving dirt. Okay.
This meant that I had to sieve dirt in order to get a 7% chance to get one of the best food sources that you are offered early in the game back, which costed me a little bit of time. However, I planted the cantaloupe seed and the sunflower seed, and I was able to get some form of early food production started, which allowed me to go outside for the next day. Whenever you see multiple days in a row, it means I'm likely working towards the same goal throughout those days, which was the case for days 5 through 7. At the start of day 5, I went out of the shuttle and I was met by 3 spiders, which I ended up finding this mini ghast after that, who wanted nothing to do with me. These mini ghasts are a little terrifying because they grab other mobs and then bring them to you. So when I was mining a tree, I had to kind of look out for that, but I had to mine as many trees as possible while the day was still out. And as soon as I grabbed the wood that I needed, I was able to make stock, which I turned into spider eye soup, which is as good of a food as you're going to get in the early game, which gives you 2 hunger points and some saturation. It's not much, but it'll do. I spent the majority of these days just mining out the underneath of our ship and finishing that little area. Something to note from this is torches are your friend. You want to use as much resources as you can possible. Making torches will make your life so much easier because you don't have to use the hunger, you don't have to use the time, and in the 100-day series where we don't have a lot of time to begin with, this is a must when clearing out all this area. As you see, I managed to also get a rice seed from sifting the dirt that we eventually added to our farm. But effectively, we have now an effective way of getting food efficiently, as well as getting fuel and dirt and pretty much everything we need to survive at least the bare bones early game. And just to top everything off, we added some trees that you can shear and also some barrels so we can work on dirt production while, we're still underground. There's basically everything that you need under here.
My goal right now is I want to make, where's my clay? I want to do something with the clay I have. Yep, here it is. Okay, so I want to make a crucible. Yeah, I need porcelain clay. Okay, and I have this right here. So we'll do this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfecto, amundo. And we'll do this. We'll put this in here. We'll get this. Will it take a ladder? No, it will not. Okay. So right now, I want to do 2 things. One, I want to light up the area, but I also want to make this crucible. Oh, please tell me I didn't need to detect. Oh, okay. And we can claim reward. I'm going to claim the iron ingot because I don't even have enough space for this. Oh, that's so annoying. Dude, we really need more space too. I'm actually going to hold off on keeping that all together or something because we need to make a crucible. And with this crucible, what we can do, if we put this above this, I'm gonna do this. Or I'm gonna place, whoa, what the hell? Or I'm gonna place that right here. That's not good.
So day 8, I found out what happens when you run into fire, and it happens to be heat stroke. Heat stroke is dangerous in Crash Landing because when you reach a certain level of it, you just die. You get all these fun little things on the left side of your screen and a nice hue shift in your general game. Really fun. Meanwhile, I went to put stone in our crucible to make lava. Crucibles are important for making both water and lava. Both are needed to make a cobblestone generator. You can use a torch for the minimum speed, or you can use the pyrolithium for a more boosted speed. I don't know necessarily if it's that much faster, but this mod's wiki is a little bit outdated. So we also made an iron bucket because if we were to use the clay bucket for transportation, the lava would break after one use. So an iron bucket is a good investment for day 8 to pick up the lava. To start off day 9, we created a new and efficient light source system using glowstone nodes. Until this point, we've been using torches, which have been not so great because they've been adding to the heat. However, in order to craft the glowstone nodes, we needed a saw, which was just 1 iron, some stone sticks, and some regular sticks. Glowstone is priceless in this mod pack because of one simple detail. It doesn't add heat to our person, which means we don't have to run through as much water, which means we don't have to keep getting water. A lot of the stuff that I'm cutting out in parts of these days is me just going down and getting water because we are constantly under the heat and under the pressure. So not only are we going to be able to light a lot of the stuff around us up, but we're also going to be able to be more efficient while doing other things because we're not so hot. Now, the saw mod is incredible, and there's plenty of ways to use it that isn't for the glowstone, but preparing the glowstone, we can use 1 regular glowstone block and use almost 64 of them as nodes, which is pretty impressive. Most of the day otherwise was spent grinding water and other things using the dust that we mined for ourselves because I had planned to get out of the ship and I wanted as much hunger, as much resources as I could so I could start expanding in the next coming days. Something I decided before this mod pack even started was I wanted to work outside the ship, and in order to do that effectively, we needed walls. So I thought about getting a cobblestone generator to effectively get a way to get blocks so we can create a little barricade around us. Easiest way to get cobblestone in this mod pack is using a transfer node, and they're actually dirt cheap. The most expensive thing probably was the redstone block, but you get a lot from the dust anyway that you sieve, and you should technically already have enough redstone up to this point. If day 9 was preparing to light things up, day 10 was me starting my first efforts to light up the area around us. Obtaining more land was critical for our success to come in the future, and I dreamt big. So I spent a good time just placing nodes all over. Fun fact, if you actually press F7 in this mod pack, you can see the tiles in which mobs can spawn in the nighttime, which was a big help when lighting up the area. Even though I wanted to spend the entire day lighting up the area around me, I had to create a cobblestone generator to create walls. When I tell you this caused me some problems, it caused me some problems. Originally, I tried to do something simple. I don't know why this didn't work. If you could tell me in the comments what exactly I'm doing wrong here, this would be very helpful. But I made a second design that ended up working. I just moved things around until it worked. I wanted to limit test and work through the night, but something told me that's probably not a good idea, because even though we lit up a lot of the areas, the mobs around will still spawn on the outskirts. What's also funny is most nights I actually spend on the ship, and I'm mostly just grinding resources. I tasked myself with making some better food, so I made some rice soup, which was all right. I am not a huge fan of the food mod. I understand why it's there to try and diversify the food and make the mod pack a little bit more difficult, but I find it very hard to manage the inventory space early on, and I think it's overly complicated and just not very fun. It's probably one of the lesser features that I like about this mod pack. Day 11 was spent expanding more of the lighting outside the area of our base. I wanted to see how much we could light up and if we could risk spending the night building the walls. Meanwhile, there's a mod called Pam's Harvestcraft, which adds trees with fruits into the game. I'd gotten one with the orange for my quest, and I also made an apple tree just by combining an apple and an oak sapling, and I made an effort to plant them. They take a bit to grow. I think I had some bone meal, but I didn't do it at this point. And when it came time for the nighttime, I realized that making a border was most likely going to have to be a daytime task to minimize the risk. This is mainly because zombies can track you from a million miles away and you really can't do anything about it, so why not try and do something about it?
Oh, what the freak? What the hell? Yep. Oh, give me that chest plate. Why is this guy not burning? Oh, we got a face thing. Okay, perfect. Sweet.
At the start of day 12, we ended up fighting some zombies, and one of them dropped a head. So I thought this was the coolest thing ever, so I had to wear it immediately as soon as I got it. Starting with the walls, I ended up making a chisel because if we were going to use cobblestone, we weren't about to make it ugly and use the base form of it. Making walls is essentially just placing blocks, get blocks, use the chisel, and then repeat. And then you're done, but not really. I wanted to map out a space where we could use it for the entire series, but little did I know how much we would expand. So I ended up making a pretty large area around the base, and it took me 2 days to create our first border. But by day 13, I had made a critical error. When making the walls, I didn't realize that some of the zombies would pathfind to the ship's opening in the back, because the procedurally generated ship that already comes with the map already has enough height, and I only made the walls 4 tall to not only save in time but energy. So because of the way that I made the walls, they could just jump over it and get inside the border, and I had to spend an extra day and a little bit more time so zombies could no longer gain access to us with day 14. For day 15, it was a little intimidating to look at the vast empty land and to think about what I wanted to do with it. One thing was apparent though, and that was I was poor. Other than cobblestone, which is something I did not want to use for all my builds, I really had no other blocks. And I had this idea of a storage unit, and I also wanted to build a couple other things, but I could not build anything without getting some resources. So for the entire day, we were chopping wood, day in and day out, no breaks. It was also cool to finally be able to work during the nighttime. This was the first night I could reliably walk outside my walls and not have to worry for my life, which was amazing. And also the ship was very claustrophobic. It was not something I recommend. And that's something interesting too. A lot of the times I see playthroughs for this, a lot of people will just spend a lot of time in the ship and just do everything in the ship. Like, isn't it the point of Crashlanding to actively go out and try to bring life back into the world? And that was one of my philosophies with a goal that I had made, which is I wanted to cover everything inside my walls with dirt. dirt, especially on the floor. Because crash landing, I feel like a lot of people do not try to restore and reclaim the area, so I wanted to bring life back to this planet. So I started a poor man's dirt machine farm that allows you to input leaves in the top chest. It will auto process it through a barrel and then output it into the other barrel. Should I probably have used 2 hoppers for this? Probably not. Was there a better way to make this? Probably. But for now, it's decent and it makes dirt. And we were able to start our journey with a couple pieces of dirt, which I put by the trees. Day 16 was getting more materials, getting that bread, except not the actual bread because in Crash Landing, we ain't eaten good for a while. But I figured since we're getting dirt, why not try and bring some of that lower area up to the surface? I recently got a soybean plant and I wanted to make a farm on the surface because if we're going to do more stuff on the surface, I want to minimize the really annoying tasks. So I did this little design with the oak planks to make them look like crates and made a full row of plants. My theory is whenever I get a new plant, I can add on to the farm. And also if I'm hungry, instead of making food like the game wants me to, and to circumvent that mechanic, I could just grab stuff from the area and do that instead of crafting it. Day 17 through 18, we started to expand more and more onto the farm. At first, we had soybeans, but then we added some peanut butter and some tomatoes as well. There also was a quest that required us to kill mobs, and one of the rewards was very tempting, the Ender Pearl. Now, with an Ender Pearl, you could make a vacuum hopper, and currently with the setup I'm using with the sieve, we're losing some efficiency because some of the items aren't falling directly into the hopper, some are getting teleported to the top of our roof. So instead of getting 100% of the items, we're more or less getting 75% of the items. So I wanted to make this mini mob farm for that reason, but also it's very helpful to have extra bone meal, extra string, just extra anything that mobs will drop. And the great thing about Crash Landing is that there are no caves. So if you wanted to make a designated area for mobs to spawn, most of the time they probably will. The mob spawn is just very, very aggressive. When making the mob farm, I was very deliberate on the design. I added stairs as they were the safest option to hit the mobs because sometimes mobs will spawn that are smaller than you, so stairs are the single most effective way to hit mobs, whereas they cannot hit you back. Overall, I was kind of happy with how this looked. I mean, the mob grinder looked like a little minivan, like a little caravan thing. It worked fine, like for something that probably shouldn't have taken me 2 days to make, but I mean, overall, it was, you know, it's the thought that matters. It's the soul that counts with this build. I spent a long time just kind of organizing things. First of all, I moved out, actually, let me go in here. So I moved out all of like the storage. I still have a little stuff in here, but I moved out. So I upgraded this. I added a survival generator. Survivalist generator. Okay, actually, I moved every little thing into one of these chests. So I have a lot of, now you might be asking, when do I have like stone here if I have stone there? Sometimes I use like, it's much more efficient to just kind of like put the leftover stone in like its own little thing. Just basically anything that is used to like clog my chest, I want to put over here. I essentially moved everything that I owned into this like just one chest. And as I said before, I really wanted to create a city. I wanted to create something that, you know, kind of like fits the Crash Landing vibes. So this is the first step I'm going to take. So Crash Landing offers 2 mods that are super unique to the building style, which are the chisel mod and the microblocks mod. And one thing that really jumped out to me is how amazing these building mods are, because honestly, you don't even need a lot of color theory or anything. You just really need the chisel mod to get up and start building. These mods were made in particular for tech players who don't really like to build that much, because I only used like planks and maybe cobblestone, and the shed was looking very fine. And that's something that I see that kind of annoys me actually with Crash Landing, is a lot of people will say that we'll play Crash Landing, they'll play for like the tech progression, they'll ignore the building aspect completely, and they'll power through the progression, be like, well, you know, the tech isn't that fun, the tech wasn't that good. If you want to play tech, you should play Greg Tech, or you should play so-and-so or whatever. Dude, compared to the stuff when this came out, Tech It, for example, this was so not only ahead of its time, I feel like it competes well with current mod packs. Fresh the building system is, how fresh, like even with the tech mods and stuff, I feel like it doesn't go overboard with the tech mods, even so. But if you're playing Crash Landing just to progress as fast as possible, I think you're not going to enjoy this mod pack very much. One of the reasons I enjoyed playing this mod pack, or even like like making the 100-day video like I'm doing right now is making these small little projects for yourself and being able to kind of work on it slowly but surely. Hey, if I need to make like a storage system, instead of trying to power through to make an ME system and then maybe building something afterwards and like trying to progress as fast as possible, maybe try and slow down a little bit. Maybe make a little shed, maybe make a little area. Like this took me about maybe 1 to 2 days. And again, it wasn't the most effective use of my time, but making little things will definitely help your enjoyment of this mod pack because it gives you a lot of resources to make really good looking things with very little, which is something that I can appreciate. Day 20 was a continuation of building the shack and finishing it up. This is when I really started to use the microblocks mod, and it's such a unique and super underrated mod for building because essentially it creates halves of many different blocks, and if you want to get panels or you want to get something even smaller, the microblocks mod will have you covered for that. And when I was making the shack, I really wanted to focus on minimalism, but also kind of that fine details. So I added some chisel cobblestone to give it that nice support structure that the entrance kind of needed, and it was a nice little touch that made this build feel super unique. This is a mod that is kind of in particular unique to Crashlanding in a sense. I haven't seen this ever really in other mod packs. I don't know if it was custom made for this mod pack or maybe it just used it because usually you find other things, but it ended up looking pretty nice. In Crashlanding is when you have a lot of items and not a lot of inventory space, it can feel like your inventory is super cluttered. And one of the solutions this mod pack has for us is the golden bag of holding. You're supposed to make this very early for the cities. However, the issue is the wool. It's been very unobtainable until recently, as we do have a mob farm. And I finally got enough string with the combination of our ever-growing farm of random plants. We have a cotton seed, which allows us to get another way of getting string, which is always nice. So I ended up making that. It essentially works as almost a double chest of sorts in your inventory, which is pretty cool. Also, something that's really interesting with this mod pack too is you can use aluminum for the hoppers. So I took full advantage of that and I made a basic auto smelter. It works somewhat similar to our dirt one. Is it a little archaic? Maybe, but that's the beauty in the simple things, you know? You don't want to go too overboard. If it works, it works. Whatever you do necessary to do it doesn't really matter. Watching back on days 22 to 24 felt like a blur to me. I didn't exactly know what I wanted to spend my time on. Sometimes I would either spend my time on preparing for my next big project, or maybe grinding through Crashlanding's tedious mechanics, or trying to find an enderman for an ender pearl, which I got by the way. But Crashlanding is a very grindy game. You need to put in a lot of time just gathering water, food, or hammering God knows how long until you get a smeltery. And when you get a smeltery, which I think is from the Tinker's Construct mod, you can get 2 times the resources you normally would get, which would offset a lot of the grinding we would need to do. But what if there was something we could make for cheaper? Anyway, a lot of these days were just me kind of hammering everything and just kind of grinding these resources and grinding the sieves and getting gravel. We did need it for a quest. There is a quest where it requires various metals. But yeah, Crashlanding is like, you gotta do a lot with your time. It's a lot of grinding. You might notice something grand encasing our garden. This, my friends, is the greenhouse. And this was something that I've been working towards the entirety of the day. And one thing to note is that even though I had all the cobblestone mapped out, we didn't have enough glass. And I could sit there and hear all the people saying, you know, why not get a harvester? Why not get a sludge boiler? And then get sand. It's super easy. First of all, one of the things I can confidently say is that if I did not build this greenhouse at this point, at this time, I would not have built it. Don't wait to get resources to make your dream builds. It's going to add more roadblocks to your ideas. Use what you have, and even though it was a pain to build the glass, I could at least say for the front of the greenhouse, it was worth it. And even though I didn't actually make enough to finish it, I still had to get resources for the next coming days. I also made this quick little path to the greenhouse using the simple blocks like the cobblestone and the dirt, and sometimes even a little bit of gravel. The reason they are so textured is because using the chisel mod is awesome because the chisel mod rocks. But this greenhouse was something that is truly amazing because slowly but surely I've been building it up throughout the days, and I don't have to eat food. I can just go into the greenhouse whenever I feel like it, get some food, eat some food, and then just go and do some projects. Would it be more efficient technically to make the food? Yes. But I am not making these recipes from hand. I am not having this clutter in my inventory. It's way too much work, and I would just much rather have little food that I can eat in bulk than constantly be making the big food and adding another thing to Crashlanding. And of course, daily hammering because Crashlanding is actually just Hammer Simulator. Wait, you thought I was joking about Hammer Simulator? This is what I do a majority of the day, every day. I had a machine where I actually automated this a little bit with something called an auto placer, which places cobblestone and I hammer it down with a hammer and then place it into a sieve. Occasionally, just like an Amazon delivery work driver, I am allowed 1 water brick per day, but then it's back to hammering all day, all night. And I could even tend my dirt garden at night where I slowly fill up my path after a long day of sifting. Hard work and pretty boring. At the start of day 27, I had thought I had gotten all the glass I needed to finish the greenhouse.
Okay, and then this is now done. So now we just have to do the roof. Okay, do not hate this at all. Not one bit. Let's get this done. All right, we gotta wait for more.
As it turned out, I was short like 12 to 14 glass, which sucks for me, but on the bright side, all that sieving is really starting to pay off. I'll start by giving you a little bit of a sneak peek in something that'll come in handy later. As I said earlier, if you were paying attention, there is a way to get more bang for our buck when it comes to materials. Now, if you're using the Tinker's Construct Smeltery, you can get ×2 normal iron ore, but there is a way to get 3 times our weight in ores, which is a high oven. Now, normally you're supposed to go to a city in order to acquire this, and technically that's kind of what I should have done, as it is faster, but we did the coward's way. So in order to make a high oven, you need to do 2 things. You need to put these little nihilio stones and somehow combine them with the bricks. The issue with this method is that even though it's effective, we need to make 24 blocks and each block is 4 bricks. So we are literally doing this brick by brick on a day-to-day basis. This was also the first time I was able to use the crank to make alloys. Alloys are kind of important, not right now, but in the future for making things a little bit better. Very specifically machines. These are the major components to a machine frame. As of right now, this will be our primary method of making alloys until we get an induction smelter. If day 27 started the alloy quest, we were going to finish it on day 28. As I said before, there are 3 different types of alloys, electrum, invar, and bronze. And to make it simple, electrum and invar kind of work hand in hand. They're used for machines and other devices, but bronze is more so for tools. Essentially, it's our next upgrade for our measly pathetic bone tools we have. There are also some other unique cases for invar, which the Blending Ores quest covers, which is a hardened tank and iron shears. Both add extra volume to their respected items. There is a neat little trick for getting water as well, as normally you can't get water from a water bucket to drink, but if you put it into a hardened tank and right-click it with a water bottle, you actually can. This is also the day we crafted one of my most favorite items of all time, the glider. Now, I could explain it, but I think my reaction in real time will give you all the information you need.
This was Elytra before Elytra, I think. Oh my god! Yeah. So you could just like fly off or whatever. This was like the original Elytra. I remember now. Ooh, I almost messed up. Okay. Whee! Yay! Oh my god, this is so cool. I love it. But I love completing quests more. And then we can pick one. The thing is, the miniature hearts would be so good, but I feel like we can get those. I'm gonna choose the grilled cheese because I'm low-key hungry and I'm lazy. Yeah, there we go. Delicious.
Day 29 is when we really started grinding to get scorched bricks for the high oven. Just kind of took it 1 brick at a time. Surely nothing too out of the ordinary will happen.
Ooh, what the heck? How'd you get in here? Whoa! How the hell did he spawn? I feel like I have to take on this tree. Where did that guy even spawn? That's crazy.
So the only solution that I personally came up with on how the zombies spawn there was a block that was made by the tree and the way that it grew. And because the Crashlanding spawning is so aggressive, that 1 block must have created the mob. That goes to show you even trees in Crashlanding can be very dangerous. Days 30 to 33 was me testing, configuring, and finding out everything about the high oven I could possible. So after many days of getting bricks and slathering them with the finest of seared stone, we made some scorched bricks and it was time to assemble. Thankfully, I had a short area area around my greenhouse that was a perfect area for excavating. One of the issues I was having was the area that we'd mapped out was already kind of a big space, but it wasn't big enough. We already had one big project there, so expanding more would be kind of important in the future. When assembling the high oven, there's essentially 3 parts to it. There's the controller, which is the interface for the machine, the drain, which allows the items to be exported out of the machine, and also like the input thingy. I don't really know exactly what it does. I was reading a lot of stuff, but none of it really made sense. I think it has to do with pollutants or something. Now, what's interesting about the high oven is it takes heat by using charcoal, and once you're finally able to heat it up by keeping fuel in there running, you can finally get some product out of it. But the moment you let it stop and the moment you let it hit 0, it's going all the way back down. Think of it like an oven that you have to preheat. I spent a lot of time getting wood, so fueling this thing constantly with charcoal wasn't really a difficult task. I wish I could optimize it, but I will take a little bit of inconsistency with getting 3 times our ores. That is quite the trade-off. After building the high oven, it was important to upgrade our bone tools to something actually usable. Even though technically we did not need to upgrade our tools ever in Crashlanding, that's like saying you don't need air conditioning in the summer. It's a quality of life thing that would really impact our efficiency with certain tasks, like mining trees for charcoal, which we need to fuel the high oven. Tinker's Construct has a lot of different modifiers you can add to tools. They replace enchantments in a way, and they add these really cool secondary effects to them, and one of which being the ball of moss. Something the ball of moss does is when it's crafted from vines and it's added to your tool, you can regenerate your tool slowly over time. So let's say I chop down a tree and then I wait a little bit and then I wait for the tool to recover, then recovers. I can use it again just as new. I don't have to repair it. So I chopped down my orange tree. I got saplings. I planted a bunch of jungle trees to get vines to make a ball of moss and eventually add it to my lumberjack axe, but it didn't work. Apparently in this mod pack, there are 2 different moss items. One does absolutely nothing and the other one is the one that I need, which doesn't require vines at all. Instead, I have to put the cobblestone in the fluid transposer with water to turn it into mossy cobble. Then and only then can I get 9 of them to craft that into moss, which I actually needed. One of the big things I also started on was creating a layout for the building of the high oven. I really wanted to encase it as it was kind of an eyesore. I wanted to keep the theme of the town and started with a factory finish in the flooring with the factory blocks. But there's definitely more to start building with. A major issue with placement of the high oven was there literally was no building space. If I wanted something to look decent, I would have to renovate the walls. So I ended up getting to work. And even though we had upgraded material in our bronze hammer, the hammer itself was very slow. We ended up expanding and working throughout the night and building upon our massive project. Now, unlike the other 2 builds, I really didn't go into this build with anything planned in mind, but that's okay because there are so many blocks to choose from and to become creative with. Like, there's a block that's called the Holy Stone that twinkles every time you place it, and it looks amazing. It looks like something that kind of came out of the Aether. However, I wanted a more muted color scheme to fit the vibe of the area. Using mainly factory blocks and futuristic plating armor, I was able to make up the walls. Yeah, the flooring and everything wasn't amazing. It wasn't like perfectly center, but it's got a little bit of that wabi-sabi. It gives it that much needed charm. And I do believe you should try and build stuff. You should try to actively make your world look better. I'm a firm believer in that, but it's just so difficult. Like, there's just so much stuff. I think I remember seeing an Etho Let's Play of this, right? And one of the things he talked about a lot was just the fact that it was so hard to make stuff. Like, building took a little bit, and okay, I can totally get this. Spacebar? Yeah, okay. Oh, I do want to have a block of iron. Melted a lot of iron. If we're going to have this running, I kind of want to have seared stone. I'm trying to go for something a little Stardewy. This. How much is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, but building is a huge pain in the butt. Let me kind of restart that conversation. I mean, the thing is with building, I believe Crashlanding, every time I kind of see someone play through Crashlanding, kind of go through most of the building very quickly. Or not even the building, the progression system very quickly, right? And the issue is when you kind of have this progression system, I think it's important to have a purpose. When you are making stuff, making a little building will help you out so much.
in terms of like actively wanting to play through stuff and actively wanting to work on things. Like having the greenhouse here makes it so much more cool. I like this more than just a regular farm that you just kind of put in. Like I saw someone else do a 100-day thing where I guess they were just trying to complete the whole mod pack. And again, it's cool if you want to do that and go, you know, do it for the progression and the technology and stuff. I think if you're playing Crashlanding for that though, it's kind of eh. I think like one of the things that I really like about this is the chisel mod and the forge micro blocks. Play with some really cool blocks and some really cool things. Like I think that looks kind of cool. Like just the fact that you can do something like that. In fact, I'm gonna add more stuff to it, I think, because I know we got some of these fantasy blocks and I actually kind of want to use them. I know I'm making a lot of these. Would this look good or no? I'm thinking mix it up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I just feel like it stands out too much. Like with the holy blocks. I don't really think I like the holy blocks. I think in terms of building, again, I'm not like the greatest builder ever, but I think a lot of people shy away from building. Oh crap, I need the blocks I can place or get up to. You don't have to be like super perfect with everything and be like, oh, I gotta do this or whatever. I gotta make so many gradients and whatnot. I think working with what you got in the short term and just making something is like almost like a checkpoint or like just like anything. Like you can even just have wood or something, you know, like with that we only had cobblestone and wood, and then we made that, and then we're making this, which is like a little smeltery area. It's not like amazing. Again, I kind of wanted to go for more of a Coke can type of thing with this. Again, it doesn't have to be like perfect. And then maybe we make these panels. Oh. I am liking the door a lot more. Like the more that I look at it, the more I like the door. These guys are so annoying. I don't know why I put that there.
Finishing such a big project in a short amount of time can cause many things, one of which being burnout. But the other issue, which is depletion of resources, is also pretty important. This day was mainly spent chopping down trees and getting more water. However, the lumberjack axe that we had made in the previous days, getting wood is so much more efficient now. And the hardest part about this day was just getting the leaves and then slowly turning them into drinkable water through the crucible. We also filled out some of the path with grass, which is making our goal of covering the land of dirt just a little closer to reality. One good thing about making big projects is they will come in useful later on. For instance, I use the greenhouse all the time to get food, which makes it super easy for me to work nearby. However, there is going to come a point where eventually, and unfortunately, we will run out of space. Before expanding, however, I made the item ducts and fluid ducts, which are the main pipes the game uses, and they are fairly cheap, only requiring basic resources. Since I already made a high oven, I thought about putting the crucible that we were using to get the seared stone into some more practical uses and creating a lava generator. I did this by attaching the cobblestone to the crucible by using the pipes that we made, specifically the item duct, and then to export the lava out of the crucible, we used the fluid duct. When that was finished, I spent the entire time building a new area of walls to open up new possibilities of new areas that we can create. Meanwhile, working through the night to demolish the old one, the old border, for instance, to start our next step in our Crashlanding journey.
Okay, so I've avoided it for this long. So I plan to start under pressure. Pneumaticcraft is like 80% of this mod pack, I think, or at least like a good portion. It has an entire section in the book, you know? Not that your immediate needs are taken care of, it is time to start building technology you'll need to survive for the long term. First step is you want to make some TNT. You want to get iron. You should have plenty of gunpowder by now, and you could hammer cobblestone to gravel and get that gravel into sand if you need. So
when I said Pneumaticcraft was 80% of this mod pack, I was not joking. If you wanted to make any advancement, any machine, you needed to get printed circuit boards, and the only way you can get that is through Pneumaticcraft. Getting started kind of felt like taking a step backwards because we were going to use a poor man's method to get compressed iron. Compressed iron is the basic building block of all of Pneumaticcraft. You need it to build the walls, you need it to build the piping, basically everything. So what I did to surround myself with some compressed iron, I got TNT, I lit the fuse, and I got a bunch of compressed iron. Now, what's interesting is it kind of doesn't give you all of it back. You do get a loss until you get a functional Pneumaticcraft system working. But once I had a bunch of compressed iron, the real work began. I built the chamber walls, I added the crucial components, which were the interface, the input, and the output, and I connected all the pressure tubes, and it looked very futuristic. Like the chamber itself was a 3x3 cube. Something also interesting about this mod pack is you get these strange seeds. Unlike normal seeds, you plant them by pressing Q onto the soil and you use bone meal. which was kind of interesting. Like, it's so quirky. I don't know another mod that does this, but it's really funny. Something really annoying about Pneumaticcraft is you have to build up air pressure. The way that you do that is you use coal to slowly build up the air pressure, right? But in order to use the Pneumaticcraft machine, you have to break the middle of the block. And when you do that, it lets out a lot of pressure out. So you have to generate even more pressure going into it. It's very inefficient and frustrating, but that's how it's going to be for the start of this. And looking at some of my other systems as well, I also had a mob farm that kind of was a little outdated. I love the van, trust me, but it was kind of an eyesore and it was barely functional. If I wanted better drops or to start generating some power, I needed to upgrade. I tried sketching a little design and I did this little thing with a drop chute that kind of looked like an upside down boot, but it didn't really work well and it didn't look very good. And I knew I would probably have to redo it. So instead of having a normal boot shaped farm, I wanted the building to be both functional and look very good. Originally, I wanted to do a basic mob farm design with the 4 quadrants. However, leaning over our town with the 4 quadrants was not something I wanted to happen. So instead, I cut the building in half and I was able to turn something that looks really good into something even better by adding supports to the mob farm.
Okay, so I finished this. There seems to be a lot of mobs in there. Whoa. Yeah, even when I do all of that, there's still so many mobs coming back down. Basically what I did was I took that earlier concept and I kind of made this, if I can actually go on top here, because I think the fans are pushing me a certain way, but like we have 2 spawning platforms. It's this one and then this one, right? I didn't want to do too many because I didn't want it to look a little weird, but yeah, essentially we have all these spawning platforms and then they go into the middle where all the fans here. It's like a basic mob like farm, but it works pretty well because it's Crashlanding and the mob spawn is insane. Can I go down here like normal? No, I just fall off. That's really funny that the fans kind of have like a radius. But yeah, this works incredibly well. Like my old one was really slow at like mob spawning, and this one is actually incredibly good. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to do with this, or at least like the way that it looks, I wanted it to not look like a mob farm. Like I basically added these things here. And I added some like designs. Like I added like some stripes of like different types of stones and stuff. I have the little cross here. I wanted it to just not look so mob farmy. I want it to look like an actual building. I really like how that came out per se. I'm gonna make some of this real quick just to have, I guess I can put this back here. Whoa, what the heck? I think the only problem with this now is, as you see, it works a little too well.
One of the problems of building a mob farm in this environment is the invisible spiders. They're exactly what they sound like. They're able to clip through walls and jump scare you whenever you least expect it. But if you ask me, ErysBlue, what's your one piece of advice in Crashlanding? It would be this: kill mobs aggressively and very early. There's a quest reward that is almost game-changing, and it is getting the machine frame by grinding out mobs. What makes the machine frame special in this instance is you can earn this well before you've ever touched Pneumaticcraft, and this frame allows you to optimize the early game, which is you can get a pulverizer. Once you get that, you can automate one of the most tedious parts of the survival early game, which is hammering ores by hand. If I were to start over, I would speedrun getting this machine frame, because even though you still have to wait on the resources, it gives you some of the days back. Instead of me spending the days on hammering gravel or sand or just cobblestone or whatever, it gives you the efficiency to start doing other things you actually want to do. With the pulverizer now set up for auto-sieving, it was now possible. My plan for the auto-sieve was to take cobblestone from the generator and put it into a pulverizer. This would turn the cobblestone into gravel, then I would put that gravel into the auto-sieve, and it sounded simple enough. The problem was the power situation, especially with the auto-sieve. I am using pulverizers, and they do not need fuel, they need RF to work. Think of it like a furnace. If I put coal into the furnace, it'll cook a piece of steak, but instead of the fuel, I need power. The problem is I still have trouble making machines because of the PCB issue. I don't have a working way of getting PCBs. So I had to make a survivalist generator. This generator is really, really slow. It only makes 5 RF per tick, which is very frustrating. I do not have any other choice right now, but hopefully in the future we can change that. One good thing about pulverizers is when I pulverize gravel, sometimes you can get sand. So I made a system that takes the sand using an item duct and I put it into a better barrel where it can build up over time. To keep the generator from constantly dying, I used item ducts and a better barrel that almost acts like a funnel as I fed it a lot of junk jungle wood, and that jungle wood would disperse to all the survivalist generators and gain some power. This is the one time I'm gonna break my rule about building things, because this entire situation is really complex and I don't necessarily have the space to move it or really do anything with it too much, but this is way better than doing it by hand and is probably gonna save me a lot of time. Day 49, we tackled Pneumaticcraft once again. The goal today was simple, to find a way to get PCBs and to optimize the setup if I could. Normally with the pressure cube, you have to break the window in order to throw items in and then put the glass back. That's how you would make various items, like plastic or compressed iron. You can do that, but when you make items like that, it just dumps all the pressure that you generated out of the system. I tried to fix this by building a pressure chamber interface, which the quest book requests, which is why I got all these blue seeds. Technically, they don't really look blue, but made a bunch of compressed iron and blue plastic. Sometimes you can use plastic for general purpose things, but usually each color will have its specific items, one of which that we are using now. Anyway, what the pressure interface is supposed to do is automatically take items from the chest and put it into the chamber. And once you hit the right amount of pressure, it then spits them out and then waits for the pressure to create the item. It sounds good in theory. I even went inside the cube and replaced 2 of the walls with the interfaces and the piping, but the problem is the system still loses air. I don't think there's a way in Pneumaticcraft right now to make items without losing pressure. So you're just gonna lose a ton of efficiency anyway, no matter what. I ended up taking a break in the greenhouse to eat some snacks and keep my spirits up, and it's always a good time, you know, when you're in the greenhouse. But after prepping some plastic and some other materials, we also made a very other important item, which is the etching acid. Now, etching acid is one of the best items in Crashlanding, and it is really crucial for the early stages of making PCBs, because while we don't have a full-on laser system, in which we need to go to cities, by the way, to do so instead, we have to make PCBs the poor man's way by throwing PCBs into the etching acid and having to wait 5 minutes for them to complete. What is also very nice about etching acid is if you right-click it with a water bottle, you get water. This is a huge milestone because the way that we're currently getting water is by using leaves and boiling those leaves down in a crucible. So instead of doing all of that, I just have to right-click with a single bucket of etching acid, and now I get water for basically free. Think of day 49 as the pre-setup, like preparing for a test and getting everything ready. Days 50 to 51 were putting everything into action. Everything I had read in the quest book, also some YouTube videos, were coming into play. Even though I had said we had completed the pre-setup, I actually lied. There was one more step that we needed to do. So in order to inscribe the PCBs, we needed a UV box. And lucky for us, because we submitted the etching acid, we got a small component of that. Now, I'm not gonna lie and say I know exactly how this works. All I know is that if I put the PCB in after it comes out of the etching acid, it'll come out with the item that we need. The difficult part was waiting for the PCBs in the etching acid because it takes such a long time, 5 minutes to be exactly. And you're expected, by the way, to check up on it periodically, so it takes a little bit longer than that. And I don't know if you noticed, but 5 minutes is 1/4 of a full Minecraft day. Then you have to take even more time putting the PCB into a UV box, craft the unassembled PCB with the transistors and capacitors, get jumped by an invisible spider, which is very fun, by the way. Then you can finally make a logic board in which you can turn it into a machine frame, and the first machine that I decided to make was a mob grinder. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the mob farm was looking a little full. So I tried to hook it up to direct power, and it seemingly only wanted to work once and not again after that. At the time, I really didn't know what I was doing, so I knew I needed to do a little bit more experimenting. And experimenting with the mob grinder, I found that there was actually a little chest inside. If you didn't constantly pump out items with an item duct out of it, the mob grinder wouldn't work, because even if you have power, the machine is clogged. This was the first time in a while I've actually seen the mob grinder empty, so the noises of the mobs will not haunt me anymore. And hopefully the invisible spiders might just leave me alone for a little bit. But now that we can obtain PCBs, I thought this was an ample opportunity to upgrade our power, one of which was requested by the quest book, which was a reactive dynamo. Now, if you're watching, I am pleading with you, please, if you are playing through Crashlanding, one big regret I made was not making more of these. These are the most cost-efficient ways of making power. This is the best power you can get in the early game. Please, if you have the resources, make more of these. You will save yourself a lot of power struggles. The way that it works is you give it fuel in terms of gunpowder and mob essence. Both can easily get from a mob grinder, and it turns these items into power. And after hooking up all these items, I actually wired the piping all the way to our sieve system, because the survivalist generators we were using were not only kind of a pain to upkeep, but they were truly not very good. And the reactive dynamo would be our truly first automatic way to harvest and maintain power. I finished the day with testing some blocks to encase our Pneumaticcraft system. I wanted to make a building for it, but I don't think the stone blocks really work for me, and I kind of wanted to do more experimenting.
I've been wanting to do this for a little bit, but I'm gonna make silky jewel. because I want to put it on my pickaxe. Make it silk touch. And then what else can I do? Do kind of want to upgrade this. It's not at the range I would like, because right now this is mining level copper. I think alumite would honestly be a little better, but upgrade the pickaxe a little bit. Which one of these guys would explode?
Upgrading tools is something that I've been meaning to do, but never really got around to it. Of course, I made some bronze tools with the bronze lumberjack axe, but my pickaxe was still bone and modifier free, so I needed to change that if I was planning on heading into my next project, which was making a building for the Pneumaticcraft cube. Crashlanding offers a lot of cool blocks, and I wanted to look into building kind of like an office in an urban city, almost. I really wanted to give it that professional look, so I ended up using these blue temple blocks, and by the way, Crashlanding has so many cool blocks that you can use. Go and have a look for yourself and try it out. I like the temple blocks because they use like one piece of lapis. They're pretty inexpensive after you reach a certain point, and they looked insanely trippy. They had some weird texture thing. Depending how you looked at it, the block would move around. I also heavily leaned into microblocks and the chisel as always. Thankfully with the glass, I have silk touch, so even if I made a mistake, I wouldn't lose the glass that I placed. But I went for more of a dark support beams encased in a light blue with the walls. I also used iron doors for the entrance, which I haven't really done ever for anything else. I actually don't make entrances for anything, but originally I wanted to use Pneumaticcraft doors or replace it in the future with Pneumaticcraft doors because they work just like iron doors. And of course, this is a Pneumaticcraft setup, but those are pretty complicated. Something that also quickly became an issue was the mob farm. The chest was simply not enough storage to keep all the loot in one place, and when you run out of space for your loot, your grinder doesn't actually work anymore. So I decided I was just going to use better barrels. I've avoided using better barrels against my better judgment. They're actually very good for what they're supposed to do, which is stock up on one specific item. And since the mob farm doesn't really have a ton of crazy items, we can just go for specific ones that we might need, or just the very common items that we might need, like bones, gunpowder, even ender pearls. Like sometimes endermen will spawn in my farm for some reason. I also made it a mission of mine to route gunpowder into the react dynamo. You see, the one thing that my farm doesn't really supply is blaze powder, and I've been kind of using some of the blaze powder to power the dynamo, and I wanted the dynamo to work on its own. This was the biggest time period in which I did not get a lot done, but it was more so prep work for something even bigger, something that I needed to get done in the future. And what I'm talking about is finally going to a city. Now, the city is something that I've been avoiding for quite some time, and to my detriment, because I technically should have went sooner. But the main reason I've been avoiding the city for quite some time is because if I die, I would have to get my stuff back, and I didn't have the replacement materials I needed in case I died to go back to the city. But now that we have advanced far enough, I don't think I have to worry about that anymore. So not only did I finish the house, which is something I'm very proud of, but I also made a little entrance to the house and just spent some time filling up the area with some dirt. I also spent a lot of time making food, specifically making a lot of donuts and other little things, because we're going to be out there for a little bit, and it's good to have some general good hearty food in case we're out there for a little while. But the main reason I have to go to the city is because in order to advance Pneumaticcraft, you need dyes, specifically red and yellow dyes. Because in order to make the laser system, we need to automate the PCB formula. Instead of just throwing into etching acid and then waiting for 5 minutes, we can actually do that automatically by making specific type of plastic to make specific type of machines called lasers. But in order to finish the Pneumaticcraft questline, we need these specific types of seeds that we cannot get any other way. We have to go to the city. So that's what I intended to do.
I think we got everything we need. I am just going to fill up on some water one last time, and hopefully we'll find some stuff, or we'll find the factory thing. Dude, this is so cool looking at it from this. I brought my sleeping bag, right? Okay, I did. Ooh. Oh, that's not good. Okay, I can't hold off on it. That was pretty bad. I can't believe I fell.
Day 60 was the first time I had actually traveled to a city. After trekking about 300 or 400 blocks, I finally found one. The plan was supposed to be quick and easy. Find a red and yellow dye so I can keep moving with the Pneumaticcraft questline. I also really wanted to find a blaze to get a blaze rod for the potions, since not only did we not have any fire resist, but you can use them for upgrades for the Pneumaticcraft machines. But the dyes were absolutely non-negotiable. We had to get them before we got back. I've talked about how I was a little disappointed with the cities beforehand, but in the version 1.2 of Crashlanding, the cities were so much more varied. There was a road going to the cities. There was the Pneumaticcraft building where you can skip a lot of the Pneumaticcraft stuff, which I think was very good. I remember watching like an Etho Let's Play or something, and he would do that. The loot was generally a lot better. You didn't have to go to a lot of cities, and I think they changed it so you would have to explore a lot more in order to get basic things. But in my opinion, I feel like they shouldn't have gotten rid of like all the really like cool fun buildings or whatever. Like, I just missed the Pneumaticcraft building, you know? That one really holds a special place in my heart. You might notice that I also turned on the mini-map in the top right corner, I think, because there's a lot of mobs and a lot of different spawning areas, and cities are a hot spot for that. I think having the mini-map is good just to check, like, okay, am I on a building with mobs or not? What's also extremely lucky is that the first chest I got, I didn't really get anything too useful, but the second chest that I opened, I got the red dye that I needed. The rest of the trip, however, wasn't really as lucky, as most of the chests were filled with useless stuff like cobwebs or empty bottles. I did find a smeltery building in which you're technically supposed to set up your tinker setup from, and I'm honestly kicking myself because now that I have everything, I could have just gotten it from this building and have been done with it. I didn't have to do the lazy coward's way. I eventually ran into some blazes and some other mobs, but it's into one of those buildings where I had no armor, and if I went in, I was basically guaranteed to lose a life and have to backtrack to the city. And it wasn't until my second day of searching in which I found a yellow dye. And once I got it, I went straight back to the base. I didn't really want to push my luck any further, and at this point, getting a blaze rod felt like it was kind of impossible anyway. As soon as I got back to the base, I had made two seeds, the red seeds and the yellow seeds, aka the helium and fire. I needed to clone these anyway, as you can turn seeds into dye, and I wanted extra dye just lying around just in case, so I didn't have to go back. The fire one uses netherrack as a growth base, and if it touches anything except the netherrack, it'll start a fire. But overall, these were pretty easy compared to the helium seeds, in which they have inverse gravity, meaning if you plant them, they go into the air and they could fly off wherever if you're not careful. These were considerably a lot more difficult. I used the crash landing space thing that you start like spawn with or whatever. It was still really difficult to get the yellow plastic all the way through. Now, I haven't made the laser system in these 2 days, but I made something else that was very important that we actually kind of needed, which was a charging station. The main use case for it was to charge Pneumaticcraft items with pressure, which you get from your machines, which we can get from the Pneumaticcraft cube, and we can distribute it to our other systems. This is important because if we're going to make a laser system very soon, we would need a special item to help us. Just like many things in this series, I made something that I should have made a long time ago, but it's better late than never. So this was a huge upgrade for Pneumaticcraft, and what I'm talking about is the pressure gauge pipe, or the safety pipe. There is not a lot of coverage about this item. I searched a lot of YouTube, and there wasn't really a lot that I found out with this, so I was basically going in blind. But what this item allows you to do is set the strength of which you want your air pressure to go into your Pneumaticcraft cube, and allows you to take air out of it so you constantly don't have to watch over the fuel like a hawk. Something I did pride myself a lot about this 100-day series is I never had the Pneumaticcraft machine blow up, and especially since we had this really nice building, I didn't want it to blow up at all. So you might see that I'm routing some redstone into the safety pipe, and that is by design. That's important because I want to keep a pressure of 5 exactly. I need a red soak signal of 5. Equation 7.5 minus parenthesis redstone minus 2.5. And honestly, this should be everyone's favorite item. Like, it completely changes how I interact with the mod, and it allows me to just sit back and do things, especially if we're going to have a lot of PCBs and I want to do other stuff. I don't want to constantly check up on the PCBs. And if the machine is going to blow up, since I routed the piping to the outside, I think it would explode on the outside. It wouldn't explode my machine, which is pretty cool. We also made some lasers in which we will assemble in the next coming day. At the start of day 64, we finally finished making the machines. I was using the quest book as a guideline, but even with that, the whole process was just very confusing to say the least. I don't know if it's because there was no YouTube guidelines or YouTube tutorials specifically for Crash Landing. Even if they are, they're extremely old because the Modpack is extremely old. But I ended up making one thing that was going to help us with the setup, and that was the wrench. Now, the Pneumaticcraft wrench has one specific function in creating the PCBs. But before I get into that, first I placed the assembly interface, which is like the monitor for the whole system. It checks if we need the pressure and also what type of drilling we're going to do. The assembly line requires 2 assembly IO units, one for the input and one for the output. You also need the drill and the platform. The reason the wrench was so important is actually I had to change one of the assembly units from output to input to get the flow of the machine right. And after that, all I needed was to test some PCBs. Of course, it wouldn't be crash landing without a little bit of struggle. I spent a couple days dealing with spiders, plural by the way, getting stuck into the walls. I wanted to load up on a ton of PCBs, but whatever was happening with the Pneumaticcraft cube, it was being super stubborn, and it literally took me days for whatever reason. But finally, after finishing the assembly line, this stuff looks like magic. It was so cool watching the little arms move and the drill like working, and now that everything was complete. And finally, after all this time, we could really start making machines. Now that we can comfortably make machines, it was time to automate one of the most important tasks in Crash Landing, getting wood and leaves. Wood is used for so many things. Not only is it a great building block, but it's also a base component I've yet to optimize, and I've been running out of it constantly in the 100-day series. I need it for charcoal to put into the high oven. I need it for chests inside hoppers. Another big one is ladders. I love using ladders. And there's also so many other things I probably could list off, but wood is very important. So in the quest book, they have you make 3 basic machines: a fruit picker, a harvester, and a planter. We're only going to use 2 of them, which is the planter and the harvester. So with both of them, they both require something called a range upgrade. So I decided if I was going to use any of them, I was going to go all out and make the best version. I was going to make the emerald one. Now, the emerald one is the biggest that they have. I added some walls and expanded the area bit by bit. Once we got the walls all situated, placing dirt in this incredibly large plot was something I needed to fill out, but I didn't actually have enough dirt for now. And there's something called a sludge boiler that will give me dirt that I can tie to this machine later on. I also did some poor man's wiring where I get the saplings extracted and I put it back into the planter. And for power, I made a furnace generator. Since we have upgraded PCBs, we can make the upgraded versions of our generators. It basically acts like a survivalist generator, but way faster. And it's fueled by the wood that we're bringing in. So I tried to bone meal some of the saplings to test it out, but the harvester wasn't really working correctly and I didn't really know why. And it definitely needs a little bit of extra help to get fully stabilized. Something they don't tell you is making a really big tree farm might take your entire day just to place dirt. This day mainly consisted of a loop. Go to the poor man's leaf to dirt converter, stack up on dirt, run back to the farm, plant it, and then do it again and again and again. One of the things that kept me sane was looking at the saplings getting planted as I went, even if the process was beyond tedious. By the end of the day, I'd realized that I only had finished up to half the plot. The area was just so massive that I completely ran out of dirt. So in the meantime, while waiting for some dirt as I put leaves into the converter, I also made sure to light up the area on the outside of the walls just a little bit, because the last thing we wanted was more invisible spiders jumping me, or just any spiders in general while I'm landscaping. It took 2 full days, but thanks to the harvester and the leaves we were generating, we finally filled the entire area with dirt. One of the main concerns was the trees weren't being cut down fast enough to keep up, but I decided that was a future ErysBlue problem, not a current one. I was also a little worried that we weren't exactly getting the best bang for our buck by putting raw wood into the furnace generator. I wanted to make it a little more cost effective, and since we have infinite PCBs at this point, I think I could make a machine that I needed for very little cost. So I decided to make a redstone furnace. Now the redstone furnace would smelt the wood into charcoal before it hits the generator, making it way more efficient. But why stop at optimizing power? I still need to find a better way of getting dirt, so I decided to get a sludge boiler, because the harvester produces sludge, and we could put that sludge and put it into the sludge boiler to make random organic materials, including but not limited to dirt. The only real issue was if you stood too close to it, it starts to kind of poison you. Regardless, I hooked everything up, and now we've optimized our dirt production. How exciting. Making machines have quickly become my new hobby. It's almost as if Crash Landing was turning me into an electrical engineer. The next machine on my list was the induction smelter. You might remember the manual crank we had to use a while ago. Yeah, we're done with that. We no longer need to grind away just to get metals like Electrum and Invar. Instead, we could just use this machine and it will do it for us. I decided that I was just gonna hook the machine up to our spaghetti wiring, but man, does this wiring look rough. Like, this whole schematic is just interesting, to say the least. The rest of the day, I kid you not, was spent entirely on seeds. If I was going to keep making machines, we needed specific plastics for capacitors, specifically cyan and black. I spent the whole time grinding for them on the land and the water. The cyan ones are easy since there's dirt everywhere, but the squid seeds are a nightmare. You could easily miss the water when you're dropping them. But while I was struggling with the water, it hit me. I had my most genius idea. Now, I had made a separate sieve for sifting netherrack, but what if we could use that sieve to double our production with the auto sieve? So I had the brilliant idea of breaking the sieve I had already built, making an autonomous activator, and hooking it up near the ender hoppers, so when the sieve would automatically get materials, it would go into the chest and get auto-sorted. Who could have possibly thought of this genius idea? Truly revolutionary.
So something I kind of noticed with my tree farm or whatever, right? Actually, I can do this. So I made like a little tunnel because I was like, okay, I want to see how many saplings we got. And I check and we don't have any saplings. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So if I can get out of this real quick, I'm gonna take a look from above and see what's going on, because I think a lot of the sapling, yeah, like there's a lot of spots where, and this is not good. This is not good for efficiency. Like, yeah, it's all covered, but I think I'm seeing like saplings get lost up here, which is not good. And there's a couple ways that I guess you can fix this. I guess you could put like those like ender hopper things or something, but I kind of want to keep it a little on the nose. So what I was thinking instead, because I was like, okay, how can I get saplings 100%? And the thing is, when you shear leaves, you get the leaves 100%. So if we use the fluid transposer, we would get the leaves into the oak. Now the issue is it's gonna make a lot of water. Now a little bit of water is fine, but it's gonna make a near infinite amount of water. But there's a block to get rid of all this water, which is the fluid void. It isn't actually that much. It's just like I sifted down like soul sand to get this. So what I'm gonna do is we are going to put this on shear now. And it's gonna shear leaves. And instead of leaves going to here, leaves will be going into here. Oh, you know what? Hold on, let me get the fluid transposer. I didn't get it. Where's my hang glider? I put it right here. We only need one of these. So what we can do is hook this up. We can add some piping. This is a huge mess, but as long as it works. I don't want this to go over, but it will, like, it is gonna go over. Like, I think I kind of want it here. The thing is, you really don't want these two to touch. Now we just have to hook up some leadstone, and we'll hook this up here. This is all getting powered by this. So at the very least, it'll have a higher chance. Oh, I thought this was a 100% chance to get a sapling here. That's actually really interesting. It's not like a 100% chance. Okay, so I am kind of an idiot. I will show you exactly what I did. Oh, that's so cool. I never noticed this. You can use your camel pack is like actually on your skin. I'll try to do this quick before the sun comes up because this is technically did a lot of work. So originally I spent a lot of time looking through YouTube videos and so much stuff. I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Why is my harvester not working? And something I didn't realize is the harvester isn't, and you'll see there's not a lot of trees planted. There's a reason for that. The harvester needs to be full at all times, right? It works, it's bottlenecked not on how much it can mine, but energy. And something that's really weird is with the pipes or the leadstone energy. These are 80 or so, I think, right? This is actually really bad. I don't know how I get out. Some dust. Okay. Oh, yeah. Same issue here. But essentially, the issue that I had is these generators, you'll see they have no power in them, right? They had a lot of power before. A lot of power. And the main issue with this, and I didn't quite realize this, is these were not exporting power correctly to this. And you'll see we had like the hardened energy cells and all that kind of stuff. And I had to take a real minute to kind of understand everything that was going on. So just to kind of emphasize what I did with my power problem, first of all, right, is when you have such a large radius, and this was kind of my mistake too, right? So this originally, I got rid of the emerald one. This one, the emerald one is like the largest radius, right? So you're gonna have the most power. You're gonna need a lot of power. And essentially what happened was that my power supply couldn't keep up. I just did the one furnace generator. So I was like, okay, I'll make a couple more and I will pump it out. But even if I pump it out into this, it's not even, okay, like it's almost like I just had one generator. I had to export it outwards. So it inputs here and exports out. So it's really weird because again, like the leadstone energy pipes are kind of dumb in this game. Like the leadstone wants to share, I think. So like if it goes directly into this, right, it's not going to get as much power. So you have to like use these energy cells to kind of like direct, like these are kind of like the better pipes, kind of like you put the pipes into this and then it kind of just gives the power to this, if that makes sense. But yeah, what I'm essentially going to do is instead of getting rid of all the terrain, I'm going to do the simpler thing and just put a radius like this. And you'll see we have a much smaller area to work with. And meanwhile, it is planting and doing all that good stuff. But I think this is better. Essentially, though, it's like, I don't know. My game was lagging out a little bit beforehand too. I guess technically this is day 79 now. But yeah, essentially I did this whole overhaul thing, created all these generators, everything, and then it just kind of crashed on me. So if I really wanted to, I could upgrade it to like diamond or something if this is too slow, but I think this will be fine because I also had the issue of mob spawning in there and I kind of did not want that. But now we're getting saplings and stuff too, which is good. And we also have so much freaking dirt. And also another way to get water, like it wasn't really all bad because even though like it was a little annoying, we can get more water this way. And yeah, but essentially we have a lot of dirt, so why not put it to good use and shovel away all this area right over here.
Taking care of the harvester was a difficult task, but well worth my time. And now that we had a way of finally getting infinite amount of dirt for little to no effort, it was time to terraform. Now, one of my goals, if you remember correctly with Crashlanding, was I wanted the entire plane, the entire dust plane to be dirt. I wanted it to feel like it was a regular Minecraft world, something that kind of emulated Earth in a way, like we were terraforming a planet. So I spent most of the day and night cycle using the excavator to get this dust out and put the new dirt in. And thankfully we made a lot of progress. So much so, I think it was becoming a 2-day task at best. One day at work actually turned into 3 because even though we had a small plot of land, destroying and placing blocks took a surprisingly long amount of time. I think it's because I wanted to preserve the crevices and all the little intricacies of the land. I didn't want to just flatten it out. So it added just that little bit amount of time. Also, what is quickly important is that even though we do have the sludge boiler and we generated a lot of dirt, we ran out of it surprisingly quickly. So I still had to utilize the poor man's leaf to dirt converter as well as the sludge boiler that we have. It's really cool editing this and seeing how much progress I got done every single day, so much so when the final block placed, I had a flat land of grass just all over. But that's not all. I wanted to add some bone meal to the area to add some grass. Saplings would spawn from the Pan's Harvestcraft mod, which were kind of annoying because I didn't really want trees to grow, but the grass made it all worth it. It looked amazing. I added a path by adding some stones and some other decorations to the tree harvester farm. And since we had all this wood, why not try and make something with it? And that's where I got my next idea for my next project. Since we finally had a massive surplus of wood, I figured why not use the wood to make trees to decorate this new land. I started with this amazing custom built large tree, and honestly, microblocks was a huge game changer, such as manipulating the blocks into corner pieces to round them off, using leaf slabs, freaking leaf slabs of all things, or even creating like these little hanging designs with the leaf posts, which I don't know what other mod you could do that with. It's specifically with Crashlanding. I also wanted to add a little bit more grass, and I found this neat trick where you can use small saplings. So when I use the bone meal, I would put like a piece of string over them so they wouldn't grow into full trees. It's awesome because it adds so much more variety, and I just love how the little saplings look. Custom trees are also some of the easiest decoration pieces that you can make for yourself, given enough time to shape them. Like when I started the second tree, it didn't really look good at first, but I think sometimes people will build something and they'll look at it, they'll be like, wow, this sucks, and kind of give up. And you shouldn't do that. You should always add more details. Like if I didn't start making the second tree and the way that it looked and then making it into something that looks a little better, every tree can look beautiful if you put the time in. I experimented with some smaller ones with the microblock mod, and it looked amazing because with the microblocks, you can have overlapping pieces, and having this variety of like the really big trees and the really small trees make this look so good. But when I finished landscaping and adding some of the trees and all the decoration, I thought there was one more thing I kind of wanted to build, and what I thought would look really cool, believe it or not, was made out of fish. After finishing the trees, I shifted my focus into building a centerpiece. So I ended up using the steel statue, and I don't know exactly what was going through my head with it, but I kind of wanted to make it on a diving board, just something to tell a story. And when I ended up finishing the little pedestal or the little diving board thing, it kind of reminded me of one of those old Pokemon statues from the original Red and Blue games. One thing that made this project a massive headache was just how the water works in Crashlanding, because unlike vanilla Minecraft, as you know, water isn't continuous. It's not infinite, but obviously that's by design. But you kind of forget about this until you place the blocks, and then you're like, oh wait, water isn't infinite. You kind of have to keep placing it. So I ended up getting a barrel, and I had to place it over and over and over again. I spent some time experimenting with the surroundings of this building, messing around with different types of stone types and some sugar cane, and I even tried adding some decoration, like I added some carrots and some rye to give it a little bit more personality. And I ended up finishing off this like little faux garden with some stone posts for the details from the microblocks mod. mod. In the end, I ended up swapping out the carrots for the sunflowers because I just did not like the color of the carrots that much. And I'll be real, I'm not the biggest fan of how this like pool statue thing kind of turned out. I'm curious to see what you guys think, if you guys like it more than I do. Does it hold up to the other builds that I've done so far? Who knows, but I'm gonna keep it for now. So I was planning to do some expanding when I saw that a zombie didn't despawn, so I went to check it out. And even though I thought I've seen it all, especially at day 87 or something of what, Crashlanding, this was truly something I didn't expect. Oh, this guy moves fast. Whoa, 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 that guy's so much HP. Hold on, you see that? He had like 300. I wanna see if I can look back again. I was like, why is he not despawning? Dude, he has like 100 HP, like 400. Oh my god. I was about to say, just watching him like go down is interesting. And he's gonna chase me around. Leave me alone! Oh my god, finally. Something I realized when we were building is we didn't really have a place for machines, and I didn't want to put the machines near the harvester. So instead, I do what I do best, and I expanded the area. I ended up making a new area, building as much walls as I can, and then I also went with this weird overhang design. I kind of wanted to add a little bit of industrialness to it. I mean, I don't really get how this is industrial. It kind of looks more like a cathedral. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the brown and like the cobblestone, but I really kind of like how it looks. It's interesting to say the least. And for the flooring, I ended up using like concrete, and concrete is really weird because it actually gives you like a speed up. I didn't know that like certain blocks have like certain properties and stuff. Concrete speeds you up like crazy. Overall, I didn't really finish the build on this day, but I got a lot done, and I'm pretty proud of everything I've done, all things considered. I finally finished the flooring with my new machine area, and I was really happy in how it turned out. When I used the jetpack and I looked up and looked at all the little like lava stone, yeah, that's right, I used like a lava stone block, which is where you see like all the red stuff. So lava stone is just stone and lava pretty much. But I really do like how this area kind of looks. It almost looks like something out of Bowser's Castle, which is actually pretty cool, all things considered. So one of the first things I wanted to set up was something very long overdue, and it was to improve and move my smelting setup. So I have an auto furnace, technically speaking, like a poor man's auto furnace where I put stuff into the hopper and then it goes into the furnace and then it automatically cooks. But the issue is the placement where I put it right next to my mob farm, and all the invisible spiders jump me every single time I'm near that. So I wanted to move that away from my mob farm, and I ended up using some redstone furnaces, I think 4 to be exact. Was it overkill? Probably, but I mean, you know, if we need to smelt a lot of sand or we need to smelt a lot of anything, that'll be worth it. I ended up routing the power from our harvester section all the way under to the redstone furnace section, which is, again, one of the reasons why I kept it so close to the tree farm. Now, one of the things with the redstone furnace is I didn't want it to look like a redstone furnace. Like, I didn't want to just have all the wiring exposed. I wanted it to almost be masked as something else. So I ended up using a mix of like chiseled stone, concrete, and some gold plating. Like, of course, I used the micro blocks, by the way. Like, I used some panels, and I used a bunch of like little decoration things to make it look like a furnace that came out of Bowser's Castle. And I really do feel like I gave it that mechanical feel. I also put like an input chest and an output chest just in case, just to have. With the auto furnace finally being operational, I spent most of day 89 working on the aesthetic of the factory entrance, and I ended up building something like a dedicated waiting area right in front of the smeltery setup. And it was actually really funny because instead of going with like an industrial like table or just trying to make something out of microblocks, I was like, you know what? Let me use the Bibliocraft mod and let me use the tables for that. I ended up using the standard table, and some of the chairs looked so out of place. It looked like if you were to take a factory, like a modern day factory, and mix it with like early AmeriCorps or something. Like, this looks like something old English people would have. But I love the contrast. I don't know what it is. I would not trade it for the world. I added like some plates, I had some seating. I even made like the little entrance to the smeltery. Like, I added like some concrete that's a little darker to contrast the smeltery a little more. I also added some plates too to like the dinner tables and stuff. I thought they looked really nice. And on day 90, I finally started transitioning the new machine area. So the first major move was the energetic infuser. I didn't want to just place it down and just kind of forget about it. Again, I really wanted to add some character to this stuff, so I ended up using these micro blocks to create a custom casing around the machine, and it kind of looks like an alligator or something. I don't know, like I use like the factory blocks and stuff, but the yellow and the black really make it look so cool. And I definitely plan to keep the theme moving on as I bring in more machines and more tech. One of the main points of Crashlanding is that the planet is devoid of life. One of the options that Crashlanding gives you in creating new life is through the quest line, and it only requires two things: an egg and some mob essence, which we have plenty of both. We get the egg from sifting and the mob essence from our mob grinder farm. In the quest book, the first animal you have to start out with is a chicken, so I ended up taking the quest delivery system, which we haven't used since like one of the first ever quests, and I did this like weird piping thing where I ended up getting our mob essence and inputting it into the quest delivery system. It's interesting too because I didn't realize this, but different mobs have different levels of mob essence that you have to get. But just to start out, I ended up getting a chicken egg and a cow egg. I even got some more name tags to make it more official. I got a name tag for the chicken and I named it Tyson, and for the cow I named it J4. Unfortunately, J4 can only be milked once throughout the day or something, I don't know. It's honestly pretty annoying because like this game makes you work for every little resource, and not being able to milk cows like a lot, you know, you can't really make things or make food. On the bright side, we can get multiple of these animals when the quests reset, which is always nice to get a little bit more extra mobs around. And also, small note, I started moving more machines to make more little Elekids, which are pretty cool. This day, we made a machine that was actually pretty cool, pun intended. It was a glacial precipitator. Now, you needed this for the quest line, but I thought about making the machine anyway because of just what it allows us to do, which is make snowballs, snow, or ice, with the caveat that it gets water. Previously, there's no ways of getting any of these items, but this machine is very useful in case we wanted to make a lake or something even more useful in making cold water bottles, which we actually couldn't do beforehand. Now, if I wanted to make a lake, something I was thinking about was you can like break all the ice and then turn it to water and then make like a huge body of water. This is like a really cool late game machine, but funnily enough, I actually didn't even find myself using it that much. So I just ended up putting it with the other Elekid-like machines. It's a cool little funny one-off machine. We also got this thing called the High Golem, and I heard that these things despawn, so I give it a name tag, and I named it Alex Lewis. It's a Full Metal Alchemist reference, if you got that. And I heard specifically you should put name tags on these things because they despawn and you could never really get one ever again. So I'm just keeping it around. I don't know what it does, but it looks pretty cool. I finally attempted something I've been avoiding for a very long time, creating a proper ME system. In the world of modded Minecraft, an ME system is like the absolute cream of the crop for storage. Once you have one, using a regular chest feels barbaric, and let me be very clear, I've been very primal with my storage. I've just been using basic chests for everything. Maybe sometimes I'll use Better Barrel for things that I absolutely have to, but my storage systems have been terrible. The main reason I put this off was because it's a total resource sink. It requires a massive amount of machinery, specifically PCBs. This is the real reasons why you need a solid laser system, because the storage drives require a ton of chips. While making 1K drives are simple, if you move up to the 4K, 16K, 64K, even as far as the 264K, I think, somewhere in that ballpark, the chip requirements just scale. Like for basic machine frames, you have to make a level 1 logic card, like a logic card 100 or something. It goes up from 100, 300 to 500. I didn't really try to go all out. Since I have a basic ME chest from the previous days, I focused on crafting an ME drive and a crafting terminal. It was totally worth it in this version of Applied Energistics and Crashlanding. Just to preface something, that Crashlanding uses a more limited functionality because it is technically the 1.0 version. There is a newer version called Applied Energistics 2.0, but even with the limited functionality, it was still, the search and the crafting functions were still amazing. I managed to finish a 1K and 4K storage drive, and honestly, that's all I could handle for one day. Even at this basic level, it's just such a massive upgrade. For days 96 to 98, to tackle one last building project before I finally prepared for my final journey. I've always wanted to find more creative ways to source food, and one of the best options, or the funniest, would be to dedicate an entire area to picking fruit. I crafted a machine called the Fruit Picker, which does exactly what the name suggests, and I gathered a bunch of tree saplings that I saved from my terraforming the grass, like adding some of the grass that I bone mealed, and I had them all ready. And honestly, the setup wasn't super fancy. I had lemon trees, I had coconut trees, and it was a really cool source of food, even if it really wasn't that efficient. I should have really set this up a little sooner, but I wanted to make like a whole little separate area for it. And if I ever return to Crashlanding, I know what I could do to make this system like really spark. I was thinking like maybe making like a factory farm or like a banana farm, like something from Bloons Tower Defense 6 or something like that inspired. I spent the rest of the days just kind of like cooking food because I was going to try to find a farmhouse and scout the cities. Now the farmhouse has spawners, which are really cool because it would be a really good way to find a blaze, as well as some of the other dyes that we might need if we ever want to get into drones. And I also hear the further you explore out into cities, the better the buildings get, which has me really excited. With only 2 days left, I was ready to leave the safety of my base behind and see what else was out there in the wasteland. These were my final days in Crashlanding, and I was not going to waste them. I spent a lot of time just kind of gliding around and then eventually like maybe finding a city. I was pretty passive, all things considered. Like I really did try to find some good loot, and I think the best thing I found was like a pickaxe. I think it takes RF or something, and that's pretty cool. But overall, I think I went to like 3 different cities, and they're all pretty much the same. I don't know if I got unlucky or whatever it was, but most of the cities I went to had like the same buildings, the same almost like everything. I heard they're supposed to, the further you go out, better buildings, really tall buildings and stuff that would have like really good loot in them, or maybe even like try to find a reactor. I think finding a reactor would have been really fun. I did find a couple of these like houses or something with blocks that are not in the game anymore. Like they kind of have these like missing textures, and every time I tried to like touch them, they end up crashing my game. As dawn turned to dusk and I realized that on the 100th day that it was turning night, I had realized I only had a couple moments to get out of the city and get to a safe place. Overall, with my experience on Crashlanding, I am super happy with how everything turned out. And I went somewhere into the open, just kind of looking around, and have really enjoyed this journey and spent the last moments of the Crashlanding experience just flying around and having a good time. So I just really wanted to thank you guys for watching just the 100-day series thing. This was a passion project of mine. If you didn't know, I actually got the YouTube partnership program through making that video. Like the Crashlanding video got over 85K views, which was insane. And I've spent the last 2 months editing this, 100-day series or whatever. Partially, that's kind of my fault. If you watched this far into the video, what I'd like you to do is comment below, like, if you had a good experience with Crashlanding or another mod pack. Like, I know people have been wanting me to play Blightfall. If that's something you want to see, if that's something you're interested in, please let me know, because I might do it. We'll see. And then hopefully it won't take as long as this one, because this took 2 months, or not even 2 months, 3 months to record and make. But I think it would just be interesting to actually quit and go to the 100-day thing. I made some backups, of course, in some testing worlds, and hopefully it doesn't crash on me. Sometimes it likes to do that. But I think it's kind of weird, or not like weird, but a little, yeah, I haven't been in this world in forever, actually. So I want to go from the very beginning. This is where we started. This is where you usually start. This is our bed. This is like the storage, or like the shack. This was our first build ever. This was the poor man's dirt converter. All this piping, all this extra stuff. This was the autosieve. The farm. This is where all the invisible spiders are, and kind of scary. The greenhouse. This is probably my favorite build ever. This was, and I encourage you guys, please, if you take anything away from this, build things to your heart's content. You know, like you never know what you can make. This was like the, I don't even know what this was, like the high oven building. That was our special building. This one, like the Pneumaticcraft Q building. Really cool. The seal. And we have this entrance. I don't think I ever properly showcased the entrance, but this was the entrance. It's working as planned. And this was our thing, like our auto furnace and all the little what did I call them? Elecans? Yeah, Elecan machines and stuff. That's really cool. And then the ME system. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And until next time, goodbye.